Okay.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Tony from McLaren St. Luke's Family Medicine. As we do the third Wednesday of each month, we give a talk on a different medical topic. Today, we're going to talk about something that we kind of a little hush-hush sometimes. We think it's taboo, but it's very relevant, and that's about older adult abuse and exploitation. Today, we have Dr. Valeriya Korchina from our McLaren St. Luke's Family Medicine that's going to talk a little bit about that, because as a primary care physician, she sees a lot of these things. She encounters a lot of these things, and so she's just kind of going to share some things about how to properly address them, what to look for. You know, as a primary care physician, a lot of us trust our doctors. We share that information, and we look to them for some help and some guidance. So, and then she's going to talk a little bit about some of the scams that go on, because we all work very hard for our money during our lives, and we want to be able to have enough as we get into our later years, and there's always somebody on the back end trying to scam and take things away from us. So she'll just share some information about what to look for. But it's a short talk, but an important talk, so I'll turn it over to her, and we'll stick around in case you have any personal questions.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Now, just for reference, everything is labeled as elder abuse. It's labeled that way because that's the way it's done in the medical field. That's just the terminology. Not everybody loves the phrase elder. It is older adult abuse, but just so you know, that's where it comes from. That's just a technical term for it, okay? Now, what is abuse? It is the intentional or neglectful acts by a caregiver that are done to harm an older adult. And the reason we're having this talk is because currently 1 out of every 10 older adults are a victim of elder abuse. And that is very underreported. So that's 10%, which makes it a really high risk, but a lot of people don't think about it and don't talk about it. So that's why I'm here to bring some fun into your Wednesday morning to talk about it. Now there's different types of abuse. We're going to just mention a couple, and then we'll go a little bit deeper on a few. Okay? So there's physical abuse, and that can be, you know, the very obvious physical abuse like hitting, kicking, biting. But there's also, if you're very dependent on your caregiver, it can be things like forced position. If your positioning is dependent on somebody moving you throughout the day, and then somebody either not doing it correctly or purposely doing it in a way that hurts you, that's one way. Or if you are competent to state your wishes, and somebody is force feeding you, that's also like a form of physical abuse. There's emotional abuse, and that can be things like insults, threats, intimidation, violation of your privacy. There's also sexual abuse, so that can be, you know, again, the obvious things like rape and assault, but it can also be things like unwanted touch, unwanted words in your direction, or a state of undress if you are, again, dependent on somebody for dressing you and undressing you. There's the financial abuse, which means, you know, using either your money, your information, or your belongings for somebody else's benefit. And then there's neglect, which means your basic needs are not being met. So like shelter, food, water, things like that. Now, the reason we're talking to you guys is because you're kind of a higher risk for elder abuse. So anybody with the more chronic conditions you have, the further you are from 70, women are at higher risk. If you have lack of resources, a lack of access to resources, if you're living in a house with a lot of family members, if there's any kind of cognitive impairment or sensory impairment, and also the more dependent you are on a caregiver for either your physical needs or financial needs, the higher risk you are. Because the people who are usually doing the most of the abuse are family members or really close caregivers. So those with either substance abuse history, abuse against themselves, abuse by them against others, any kind of physical illness, those people are usually the ones doing the abuse. And then the more financially dependent a caregiver is on you as an older adult, the higher risk you are for being abused by them. Now, kind of main stuff, what should you do is just to tell somebody. So some people don't have a safe person to talk to. If your family member is the person that you are worried about, or your caregiver is the person you're worried about. So it sometimes seems like people don't have a safe person to talk to. Your primary care physician or any of your doctors are a good first point of contact. Usually they've known you for a while. And even if they don't, they are a mandatory reporter. So if you bring up a concern with them, they are required to do something about it, look into it, or get the proper authorities involved. So if you don't feel safe, you don't feel safe talking to anybody, your doctor can be that person for you, okay? And again, main thing, try to not give out any personal information. Talk to the people around you, your friends, the family you do feel comfortable with, and always taking time to make decisions. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And just a little fun fact to remember is in the state of Ohio, no prizes require money up front. So if you get any email, phone call, mail that says you want a prize and they just need you to pay something up front to access it, it's not a real prize. Okay, that was a scam that was going around for a while. It's just something to keep an eye out for. So we'll talk about three main types of fraud because currently that is kind of the big growing field of elder abuse, you can say, is kind of your more insurance and money fraud. So we'll start with health insurance and things you can do to protect yourself from it. So health insurance is basically somebody taking advantage of your health insurance or your benefits and kind of using it for their own benefits. So things you can do to protect yourself is making sure you never sign any blank documents from your insurance. And they mail you something that's completely blank, so they need you to fill everything out. It's not your insurance sending it to you. You can also talk to your medical providers to see what services they will be doing that day and what you will be billed for. Sometimes they won't tell you how much you will be billed for because they don't really give us a number. But they should at least tell you what kind of services you should expect to see on your bills. And that feels like a lot. The easiest thing you can do is just keep track of your appointments. So anytime you go to a doctor, just throw it in a calendar, on a schedule, on a piece of paper, because when you get the bills, it'll be easier to track which bills correspond with which doctor's appointment. Also, because I have this a lot, some of my patients will bring in their insurance bills and they're like, I don't know if this makes sense. And if they have a record of the appointments they've been to, either I or our office staff will actually go through it with you just to make sure that nothing wonky is going on. Okay, so the more you can keep track of that on your end, it makes it easier to kind of fit the puzzle together and something a little shady. And then again, asking questions is appropriate. Asking your doctor why something was billed the way it was billed. Calling your insurance and asking them, what does this mean? Sometimes it feels like a lot and you have to go through a lot of prompts, but it is in your right to ask the questions whenever your money is being put or being requested by somebody else.
Question.
Yes.
So if someone passes away, do you still have to pay their medical bill within that time frame? Does anyone know the answer?
I think it's no.
I don't know. Just curious. Somebody asked me that question, so I was curious.
We can ask Tony about that, but I think
No, when my husband passed
Yeah.
away, I had bills come.
Yeah.
Well, I had to make a copy and send it to them, and they took care of it, and I didn't have to pay for it.
I know when my husband passed away,
Yeah.
the hospital told me, they said, don't worry about the bill, you're not responsible.
Okay. I was wondering that.
good to
So,
know.
good question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was very good. Now, something to keep an eye out for, and I think Tony will bring it up a little bit later. There's been a new scam going around lately, where somebody will call you or your insurance will call you and they're gonna ask you a lot of personal questions about like how you're breathing, how you're walking, how you're feeling, if you're having any challenges getting in and out of your bathtub or shower. They'll ask a bunch of questions and they say that they're gonna send you some medical equipment, and then that medical equipment gets sent to you and you get billed for it. So any equipment that you need, whether it's walkers, canes, rollers, graspers, anything like that, you will need to have a doctor's appointment because there's a lot of documentation that's required in order for your insurance to pay for it. So if somebody's offering you something for free or any equipment for free, just know that it's not free.
Except here. Except here.
Yes, we have a
here.
loan equipment closet.
And that's, you're meeting with a person face to face and they're talking to you about it, but if they're just kind of on the phone promising you a lot of things, you'll end up with a closet full of stuff that you're then responsible to pay for. So that's kind of been the one floating around the area lately, okay? And then on top of health insurance fraud, there's also Medicare fraud, because they like to hit it from both ends there. And so just remember that your Medicare number is basically your identifying number. So you need to be as careful with that number as you are with your social security and your credit card numbers. The only people who should be requesting your Medicare number are usually in your doctor's office or like an official Medicare request. Nobody should just need it out of the blue. So just remember that that is one of the numbers that you need to protect. And sadly, that's on you, that is your responsibility, but I think sometimes we kind of forget that those numbers are identifying in the medical field. And again, reviewing what those bills are from Medicare. And if it doesn't make sense or it's too hard or it's too technical, which it is all the time, bring it to your doctor's office. They'll help at least let you know if it makes sense or if it's completely out of the blue or if it needs a little bit more digging, okay? And then on your papers in the bottom right, there are a couple of numbers that you can call. There's also the 1-800 Medicare number. So if you have any concerns or questions or something on your bills doesn't make sense, you can call any of those numbers. If it's through Medicare, then you call the 1-800 Medicare number. And apparently Medicare has a whole department of people whose job it is to just look into things that might be scams, because Medicare also likes their money. So they have the same invested interest as you into finding out whether your bills make sense or somebody trying to take advantage of them. Okay. Now the last one we'll talk about will be your telemarketing scams. And those have been going on for ages. They have been through mail, they have been door to door. Now we have emails, and now we have phone calls and texts and all of those things. So first thing you do is if you don't know the name of the company or you don't know who's reaching out to you, you should shut it and throw it away. If it's an important reaching out or somebody needs to get to you, they will make a directed effort to actually reach you. So if something feels wrong or doesn't make sense, thankfully our phones now sometimes have the scam alert. Don't do that. Because their goal is if they can get you on the phone, they have lots of tactics to keep you on the phone, and the longer they can keep you on the phone, the higher chance they have of actually getting what they want. So that's what you can do to avoid it altogether. Because usually once you pick up, it will be very urgent and they'll need something very quick, and it will be like very demanding, and sometimes it's a little harder to ignore than just hanging up the phone. If somebody does reach out to you and it's like a charity or an organization that you do know of, and it's something you're interested in, it's always okay to go kind of the roundabout way and find their website and call them directly and ask them, like, what are they asking for? How would that work? What do they need from you? And just asking the more questions that you can kind of protects you, because if somebody's trying to scam you, they don't want to answer the questions. They want you to answer the questions. So being a little annoying and asking more questions than maybe you need to is kind of the best way to protect yourself once you're kind of interacting with them. And asking them their personal questions, so their name, their position in the business, their phone number, their business address, all those things, kind of
Their
helps
social
you out.
security number.
Yeah, their
their
social
birthday.
security. But it helps kind of narrow down because
They're Medicare number.
their Medicare numbers, right? It kind of helps weed out the people who don't want to be answering those questions, because a legitimate business has no problem sending you their written proposal, sending you their contact information, but the more sketchy they are, the least likely they'll want to give that to you. It's easier to just hang up on you and kind of relieve themselves of all of that. Also, again, what we talked about earlier, taking time, somebody's asking something of you, demanding something of you, just saying that you'll think about it and, take a week to make a decision. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your doctor, talk to the test here. Time is always your friend when it comes to protecting yourself because, again, scams move quickly because that's the easiest way. Scams kind of depend on you not thinking things through, no matter what age you are. So by just kind of distancing yourself, kind of the best protection you can get. And again, if something feels fishy, if something feels weird, you guys have been through a lot. So you have 8 years of experience and you already kind of have a gut feeling built in. If something feels a little off, either report it or talk to somebody about it. Okay. And again, whoever your doctor is, they're definitely there to hear your concerns, go through them with you. And if you have any kind of mail that doesn't make sense, any bills, honestly, anything, you can bring it to them. Because if there's anything going on, they very much can and will be the first people to kind of start an investigation into it. Okay. Just know that that's always a safe person.
We give this talk at some senior living residences, and I told her on the drive here, one of the challenges about individuals like yourselves, you live in your own homes, and so you have the potential for that door-to-door person. And it's easy not to respond to an email. It's easy not to answer a phone call. Sometimes it's hard not to answer a knock at the door and being able to close that door. So, just taking the extra precaution, and I've said it time and time again, I always refer to this as feeding a stray cat. And what happens when you feed a stray cat for the first time? It's going to come around again. It's going to stick around. So resist the urge to reply to that email, answer that door, answer that phone call, because it's all about the hook. Once they have the hook, it's harder for you to try and distance yourself. But a lot of this you've heard before, a lot of it's review, but it's also about just a good reminder of, hey, now's a good time to think about some things, and has anything been going on in my life that I really didn't think twice about when I opened that mail or answered that phone call. So thank you for your time. Next month I will be here with Dr. Hogan, and we're going to talk about medication safety. So, thank you for the time, and wish you a good month.
Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you.
So you're having an open house tomorrow. I wish you well with that. You're probably part of that, Danielle.
Yeah, sorry, 1 second. There you go. My face is all in the camera. I tried to stop the recording. Why did it not stop?